I'm John Tanzella, President and CEO of IGLTA, the International LGBTQ Travel Association. I would like to thank Africa Travel Week for its commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and giving us at IGLTA this platform to increase awareness of LGBTQ travelers in collaboration with Equal Africa. IGLTA is a nonprofit which was founded in 1983 and is the world's leading network of LGBTQ welcoming tourism businesses. We provide free travel resources and information while continuously working to promote equality and safety within LGBTQ tourism worldwide. Our members include welcoming accommodations of all sizes and types, transportation companies, destination tourism offices, service providers, travel agents, tour operators, events, and travel media located in over 80 countries worldwide. We also have a foundation, the IGLTA Foundation, which has a mission of empowering LGBTQ welcoming travel businesses globally through leadership, research, and education. I'm also very proud to say that we are the only LGBT organization that is a member of the United Nations World Tourism Organization. I'd also like to point out that we hosted our global convention in Cape Town in 2016, and I have so many fond memories of this wonderful city and the country of South Africa. It was our first time ever hosting our global convention on the continent of Africa. In the year of planning our convention, I established friendships with so many tourism professionals throughout Southern Africa and have visited many times since 2016. We have even expanded our global staff to include Martina Barth, who is based in Cape Town and will be speaking to you as well. So shifting to today's session, which is titled The Changing Landscape of Hospitality, you will be able to explore the impact that proactive diversity, equity, and inclusive strategy can have on travel and tourism. The session includes 2 case studies, one from the Travel Corporation and the other from Hyatt. And then it concludes with a very practical training session created by Hospitable Me. So from the Travel Corporation family is the president of Africa Travel Inc., Sherwin Banda. And from Hyatt is the global vice president of diversity, equity, and inclusion, Tyrone Studemeyer. And from Hospitable Me is co-founder Kenny Purpura. So thank you very much for your interest, and thank you again to Africa Travel Week.
From airplanes to moving trains, building bikes to simple things, like fighting for equal rights or pushing for social change. When people come together, they do brilliant things. Their ideas move with purpose. They scream. They get loud. They shift the very world around us. They make new music and sing new songs. When people come together and allow their commonalities to supersede their differences, they cloak themselves in a suit of armor, galvanized by open-mindedness, and wield a sword of understanding, cured in the flames of love. A blade so sharp that it renders the threat of indifference, stereotypes, and prejudice null and void, and the barriers of language and race, religion, sex, and sexual preference invalid. You see, there are over 7 billion people in this world. And when someone joins someone and they join someone, well, that's when understanding becomes the new drum to which we collectively march. It's timber vibrating at a frequency that shatters glass ceilings and brings down dividing walls. But we cannot walk a mile in one another's shoes until we get close enough to put them on. And we cannot step foot into this new world of understanding until we all acknowledge, much like a group of men and women did in this very place 50 years ago, that crossing the threshold into this new world cannot happen divided, but together. Yeah, together.
morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where in the world you're sitting in front of this wonderful webinar. I am very excited to join you today, and I'd like to really thank IGLTA for inviting me to have a conversation about the wonderful world of Hyatt. As you saw in the video, we talked about Hyatt in Atlanta, Georgia, Hotel of Hope. Diversity, equity, and inclusion has been a part of our DNA since its conception. And as you saw in the video, it's coming together against differences and odds and celebrating our differences and honoring and respecting one another. If we do it together, we can resolve this issue that we have with all the isms, racism, or the homophobics, all those issues that people have coming together, ironing those differences. Hyatt Hotel Corporation is a purpose-driven organization. And our purpose is to care for people so they can be their best. And when we say care for people, we mean everybody. Black, white, Latino, Asian, young, old, straight, gay, trans. We want everyone to be their best when we're in the world of Hyatt. Now, I joined Hyatt about 7 years ago, and joining Hyatt, it was really a part of building legacy, right? It was really joining an organization that had a passion, a purpose. And so as we continue to work in diversity, equity, and inclusion at Hyatt, it is how our purpose comes to life, through experiencing difference and experiencing others. And we look at, we lead with an evidence-based diversity strategy, looking at the analytics and the predictive analytics, not only with our colleagues, but also with our guests. We know that in order to be successful, we have to listen. And our CEO, Mark Hoppamazian, oftentimes remind us of a formula that purpose plus care equals action. And in order to really care, you've got to listen to what people say and then take action, right, and follow through. When our guest comes to a hotel, they're not coming to a hotel, they're inviting us into their lives. So that experience they're having with us, we want to extend to make sure they're having a wonderful time. So how we greet them at the door, whether we use the appropriate pronouns, where we address them as Mr. or Mrs., or even how we address them, because we realize that identity is so very important to all of us. And how we're recognized and how we're being accepted for who we are is really, really important. So Hyatt has been working on diversity, equity, and inclusion since it's a part of our DNA. Today, we have a global diversity, equity, and inclusion council. That's about 25 people that's on that council, about 5 people from each region. It is chaired by our president and CEO, Mark Hoppamazian. I am the co-chair. We have 7 diversity business resource groups, and soon to be 8. But the 7 that we have are Women at Hyatt, I Pride, Latinos at Hyatt, Asian Pacific Islanders, Disability, Veterans, and Hyatt Black. So these groups are coming together, and they're designed and created by the minority and by the Pride and Disability and Veterans group for the majority to have experience otherwise they wouldn't have. Each of these DBRGs are sponsored by our executive committee, and they're opposite of the groups purposely and intentionally for our leaders to advocate for groups that are not like them. And what we're doing is building what we call cross-cultural competence. And we define cross-cultural competence as the ability to discern and take into account one's own and other worldviews, to be able to seize problems, be able to resolve conflicts that ways that maximize cultural differences for better long-lasting and sustainable results as we care for people to be their best. We're shifting from tolerance and sensitivity to cross-cultural competence, from attitudes to behaviors. And the only way you can drive sustainable change in any organization or any institution is by changing behaviors. So the groups actually do quite a bit with their executive sponsors, and we just rotated our sponsors just the other day, where we wrote every 2 years, we moved them around to ensure that they're advocating and learning about other cultures, right? Just not regular cultures. If we look at our Hyatt Black DBRG, is executive sponsor of 2 white men. Our Women at Hyatt is a man and a female. Our Pride Hyatt DBRG is 2 heterosexual white females. One's our CEO and one's a leader in our technology group. And so these groups have an opportunity to engage with leaders that otherwise they wouldn't engage with. Those leaders have an opportunity to learn and grow and build cross-cultural competence and look for skills and talents in other individuals that they don't see from day to day. Each of the groups focus on how we recruit, how we advance and promote, how we develop. And then what I'm most proud about is who we support. It's one of our responses. So many organizations reacted to the murder of George Floyd here in the United States. We responded because we had already been doing the work. We'd already had a strategy in place to look at a representation, who we employ, who we develop, and who we advance, and who we support, who we buy from, and who we partner with. So who we develop and advance, hire, develop, and advance, are looking at the data analytics to determine that we need to advance representation of women around the globe, within the United States, women and people of color. And then who we support, we know that there's 100,000 unemployed youth between the ages of 16 and 24 in the world today. We've committed to hire 10,000 of those unemployed youth between 16 and 24 who are not employed, who are not going to college or university. We feel we can meet them. We can meet them where they are. We can provide them a set of skills that's transferable. We have track records within our industry to show that people have gone from doorman to front desk to general manager, from front desk to housekeeping to food and beverage to general manager. So have a wonderful track record to provide individuals opportunity to grow. And the other thing, you can see the world through the eyes of Hyatt. You can start your career off in Atlanta and then move to New York, or maybe leave New York and go to Amsterdam, and Amsterdam to Paris. We have those abilities to move people where the opportunities are growing. So we look at that, who we support in the youth between the ages of 16 and 24 Rise High, that $10,000 employee commitment is by 2025. And then we're also this year responding to the murder of George Floyd, was we want to give back to the community. And particularly in Chicago, where our corporate headquarters is that we want to provide pro bono hours to the Black community as we build to help them to rebuild. So what does that mean? That means that each of our leaders and our colleagues in our corporate office who may work in finance, work in accounting, work in legal, or work in digital or any parts of technology are volunteering their time to organizations outside of Hyatt to help them to rebuild. I'm happy to say that this is one of the proud moments for us is although COVID has hit us really hard and 100 million people have been impacted in hotels, and we had many people that are that we had to furlough or lay off, and some hotels are still closed today. But our hotel general manager in Baltimore, as she was out for her daily COVID walk with her husband, she walked by her favorite cupcake store, only discovered it was closed. So she picked up the phone, she called and said, "What happened?" And so the small business owner says, she says, "I lost my lease to the pandemic. I have nowhere to bake my baked goods." She had invited her to come into the hotel to bake her baked goods and to sell her baked goods out of the hotel. If that wasn't good enough, the same scenario happened in DC, where a young lady who had her own business was doing lobster rolls, had lost her lease, invited her to come in. And then we went down to Atlanta, and we had two individuals, females who are lesbian, who have a farm. And we're now buying our produce, had begun to before the COVID hit, their produce. And they came and they were having the difficulty bringing the produce from their farm into the city. We sponsored a dinner, a gala, an outside gala. They raised enough money to buy a refrigerated truck. Those are the things that we're doing to truly kind of help people to be their best and to help them under the condition of the pandemic. We also allowed in Atlanta, Georgia, just another couple of stories here, a gentleman that was making macaroni and cheese, had no place to make them. He'd make his macaroni and cheese out of our hotel, and it's selling out of the hotel, and now we've come with this digital platform. And to cap it off, the Atlanta has three major historical Black colleges there together: Howard, Morehouse, and Spelman. We had laid people off, and so we had abundance of computers. We gave computers to the students and allowed them to come have access in our hotels to do their homework. And also because of the pandemic and many couldn't go back home, we also provided them with housing within some of our hotels. So looking for ways to really go deeper than just writing the $20 million check or $30 million check, we have found ways to really care for people. And as we laid our colleagues off or furloughed them, we opened up our kitchens and the refrigerators and came in, they would shop and get food for their families, right? And then we had a grant program where we actually, out of our foundation, provided a grant to all of our colleagues. And I have to say today, the grant is still open the foundation is still open for giving grants. This is where you find people that really care and they're exercising out ways in which to help others and to meet them where they are. And then last but not least is on the supplier side, right? Is we're now looking to commit to make sure we're buying and purchasing for women and minority-owned businesses. to ensure that if we're going to close the economic gap, making sure that these individuals are certified, that they have the right infrastructure to support. So we're going to pay for the people's certification within the United States to be able to have certification so they can have their ability, and many have chosen not to, could not either afford to do it or didn't have the time or the resources to do it. For us to be able to pay for their certification gives them a certificate to do business, right, throughout the city. Those are some of the things. And then last but certainly not least is our efforts with who we partner with. And I'm happy to say that IGLTA has been a consistent partner with us for multiple years. And we find a lot of pleasure, joy, and we're grateful for the relationship that we have. To be able to tap into the LGBTQA community, LGBTQ community from a travel perspective and making sure that they're safe and that they're comfortable and they were operating from a place of dignity and respect. That is critical to our success. In the States, as we celebrate International Trans Day, we had a conversation earlier today with one of our colleagues that's gone through the transition. And Rachel was sharing with us the highs and the lows of her transition. And at one time, she felt that she wanted to take her life. And because of the care that she got from Hyatt and from our colleagues and the support, she did not. And today she's gone through the transition and we went through the process with her and provided her all the tools and the techniques and the availability, the flexibility and the care so that she could be who she was on the inside and outside. It is those examples that I think people will look at when they begin to come back to employers. Studies show that more than 50% of the workforce today will leave their current employer once the pandemic is over. That is huge. So how you show up, how you respond, how you support, how you care for your colleagues is critical to your overall success. Your number one commodity is your people. How you harness and grow and develop and support and engage is more critical now than it's ever been before. There's some additional studies that show that people used to quit not their employer, but their manager. The tide has changed. If your company is not doing things in the community to support organizations such as IGLTA, the Underground Railroad, PFLAG, HRC, if they're not connecting into these organizations, are going to choose not to work and not to buy your products and services or stay at your properties or ride on your airplanes. So again, this is a time for us to be human and humane. And with the guidance of organizations such as LGITA to help us understand what are the pitfalls, what are the challenges, what are the struggles, and celebrating our successes so that we can provide travel for people to see the world through the eyes of LGITA, sponsored by Hyatt Hotel Corporation. So I wanted you to spend a few minutes just to share with you the wonderful world of Hyatt. Now, let me be very clear. We've come so far, but yet so far to go. We still have things we're working on, but we're at the place where we're listening, actively listening and attempting to engage and to explore. Another example that I'll give here is that we have 7 diversity business resource groups, and we're going to roll out a new one, and it's called MENA. MENA, I think I'm saying it right, MENA, and it is the Middle Eastern, North African colleagues that would like to be a part of the affinity group. Because in the United States, as we look at demographics and we track race and gender, and many people who fall in that category can't self-identify, either will be non-specified or will be forced to identify in a different category that's not them. Talk about not belonging. So where the federal government has not chosen to divide or to separate or disaggregate the demographics, we've chosen to do it at Hyatt. Once we care for this on the inside, it becomes natural on the outside, right? Then we can really support, if we can take care of ourselves first, just like when you go in the airplane and the flight attendant says, the oxygen, when in case of emergency, the oxygen will drop down. Take care of yourself first before you can help someone else. If we can take care of ourselves, then we're more equipped and we're able to be able to help others. There's skill and there's will. We have the will and the skill to ensure that we care for people to be their best. We continue to focus and making sure that we are compassionate, that we are respectful, and we make sure that people feel good about who they are at Hyatt Hotel Corporation. So I typically end my conversations by sharing with individuals a small charge. Each of us is given 24 hours a day to do what we will. We could do something good or do nothing at all. As you listen to the speakers on this webcast over the next day or so, and you may have to go back and play it again, you have been inspired. You have been encouraged. You have been given tools and techniques and best practices to do something different in your next 24 hours to make the world a better place to work, to live, to thrive, and to strive. So what are you going to do in your next 24 hours? What difference will you make to ensure that someone else will not find themselves feeling excluded, left out, ignored, disrespected? Keep those three words in mind: compassion, dignity, and respect. Those are the three words that I want to make sure that you take out of the conversation today, that we're being very compassionate towards others, that we're actually making sure that we're not discriminating or treating people bad, and we want to make sure we're respecting everyone as we continue to evolve in this wonderful world in which we all live.
Greetings from all of us at the Travel Corporation. My name is Sherwin Banda, and I'm the president of African Travel. I'm so proud to be with you today to focus on this important topic of diversity and inclusion, specifically for our LGBTQ community. For those of you who are not familiar with the Travel Corporation, we are a family-run business operating across the world with more than 40 global award-winning brands. We are dedicated to delivering outstanding service and value each and every single one of our guests. So our diversity, equity, and inclusion strategy actually started in 2014 with the training of our travel directors. And at the time, it was focused on our LGBTQ plus travelers. Once we concluded that training, it was evolved and implemented across our Uniworld River Boutique cruise brand, as well as our Red Carnation Hotels brands. And today, across our business, diversity and inclusivity is a cornerstone, one of the pillars of our business, particularly to protect our guests' experience, as well as offering a welcoming environment for our staff. But in 2019, we started working with our business resource groups, and we started to think about how we can evolve our diversity and equality and inclusive strategy for the business. And we held numerous focus groups and numerous surveys. As a result of all the focus groups and surveys, a new name was chosen by our team, which is TTC IDEA, which stands for Inclusivity, Diversity, Equality, and Action. And I'm so proud to share with you today some of the learnings that we have done over the past few years. Today, as a result of TTC IDEA, we have global chapters in every single region, and each chapter is chaired by a diverse group of our team members. They are committed to our DEI strategy, and they are the future leaders who are going to drive our DE&I strategy and implement it across our business. Today, one of the greatest outcomes that we have is invaluable learnings across region, that we are able to evolve and have best practices from each region implemented in our business. As a result of TTC IDEA, we also now have separate identity circles. I, for example, am involved with the BIPOC identity circle and the LGBTQ plus identity circle. And here it is where we are able to delve deeper into the challenges and the opportunities specific to the needs of our LGBTQ plus community at work, as well as enhancing our experiences so that all of our guests feel welcomed and included. We are continually evolving our identity circles. For example, our Senior Vice President of People and Culture read an article about African American women being disadvantaged at work. This article was shared with our BIPOC community, and we were able to share best practices that we could implement in our business specific to the needs of our BIPOC community. This is an important resource that we have cultivated for our business, and it's a safe space for our employees. And every employee involved with Identity Circle has some kind of association to it. Very proud to share with you today that we have now more than 400 employees actively involved in each one of our Identity Circles. When we surveyed our team, and particularly given the events of the past year of the global pandemic, when we've all been cut off from one another, the need to connect has never been greater, particularly for those who have suffered in our LGBTQ+ community. The answers to the questions of how does TTC idea make you feel reflects the positive sentiment of all of our identity circles, and in this case, our LGBTQ+ identity circle. A few weeks ago, we asked our identity circle members, how does it feel to connect with the identity circle? And as you can see, our responses are varying, but my special one was, I was skeptical at first about the whole idea of an identity circle, but since meeting with the two different circles I am a part of, I have come to really enjoy it. And that has really been my experience being part of this identity circles. Our TTC idea has now reached the next phase of engagement, which is intersectionality. And our identity circles are now speaking to one another across region and across the specific association that they are affiliated to. It has been a great resource for us as a business to test policies and procedures and to create a more inclusive and welcoming community for our guests and staff. As a result of the focus groups and as a result of all of the surveys, we now have a 5-year strategic plan specific to growing our DE&I strategy across all regions, across all parts of the business. And this was surveyed across all our teams, from leadership to the most junior levels of our business. Our pillars are focused on marketing, PR, people and culture, and of course, product development. We have 8 specific goals, and each goal incorporates a means of tracking and output and performance against regularly scheduled targets. For example, our first goal, being recruitment, is to ensure that we have increased opportunities for employment for folks from underrepresented communities. And our commitment is that our workplace is a reflection of the community that we live in. And also that TTC is an employer of choice for all people, regardless of their story. A successful key performance and outcome of our strategy, particularly our recruitment strategy, is that our employee breakdown will reflect the diversity of the various groups and the regions, population regions that make up of our race, gender, and sexual identity. One of the best examples of how to incorporate diversity and inclusion into marketing initiatives through a collaborative partnership is our Kontiki brand, which is our youth brand, who partnered with Girl Gaze. Girl Gaze is a multi-site platform company built on the mission to close the gender gap and to champion diversity, inclusion, and representation across the creative industry. So to advance the mission of Girl Gaze, it was built on this curated global community that our Kontiki brand will use to further elevate our brand message and to provide content that is reflective of the travelers who travel on Kontiki. And then the other outcome that we have done in our business, and research has proven this over and over again, guests are more likely to spend more money with brands that they believe offers the meaningful experiences and make them feel welcomed when they travel on those journeys. That is no different to our LGBTQ plus community. When our products are customized uniquely for our travelers, price no longer becomes an option. This is no different for me traveling with my family on our African travel safaris. The meaningful moments that were experienced by my son, by my husband, by myself, are invaluable moments that will serve and stay with us for the rest of our lives. And one of our key goals for all of our brands across our business is that we have these Make Travel Matter moments included on our itineraries, not only to support the local communities where we operate and serve our experiences for our guests, but also meaningful for us, the travelers who are traveling across these journeys. It is proven that there is a direct link between diversity management and economic performance. And this further highlights why every single company should have a diversity and inclusion strategy. And I would urge everyone attending the conference today, if your company hasn't implemented a DE&I strategy, that you get working now, and it will serve both you, your staff, and your guests in invaluable ways. From all of us at the Travel Corporation, we thank you and we look forward to your questions.
Hey everyone, my name is Kenny Porpora and I'm one of the co-founders of Hospitable Me. Hospitable Me provides consulting, strategy, and education services in the inclusive hospitality space with a goal of making the world a more equitable and welcoming place for LGBTQ plus people, and also to provide destinations and brands the tools they need to successfully and authentically reach the large, loyal, and lucrative queer market. It is a privilege for us to be a part of this IGLTA conference alongside so many colleagues doing such incredible work. Some of our collaborative partners include NYC & Company, the Kering Group, AIG Travel, and the Travel Corporation, who you just heard from. We've been working with TTC from the beginning. We developed and delivered their core LGBTQ plus training and have been working with them to structure their business research group that Sherman talked about, TTC IDEA. That training is now the focus of our business at Hospitable Me. It's a training we customize for each individual client's needs, and we've recently adapted it into a streaming on-demand masterclass. Today, I'm going to share a little bit about our education program, Everyone Welcome, which focuses on LGBTQ plus people, the challenges they face when they're traveling, and the ways you can make us feel more welcome. You cannot provide personalized, authentic service to LGBTQ plus people if you don't understand who we are or feel comfortable talking to us. And most travel professionals have never had a professional conversation about who LGBTQ plus people are. We created Everyone Welcome to provide understanding and knowledge of LGBTQ plus people. Today, I'm going to share a few of our video lessons from our online training. You'll see a few of our educators explaining some of the key concepts for providing more respectful, welcoming service. We often hear hospitality professionals say, "We don't have a problem with anyone. We treat everyone the same." But treating everyone the same doesn't always give everyone an equal experience. Many LGBTQ plus people, especially those with other marginalized identities, such as people of color, live every day with fear and anxiety over being discriminated against, bullied, and assaulted. So it's particularly powerful for us to be welcomed with respect, generosity, and care. In our first video, our key educator, Logan Grace, discusses the power of inclusion and why it's so resonant for queer people.
What is so important about inclusion for LGBTQ plus people? Think for a moment about what it feels like to be the only red tulip in a field full of yellow tulips. What does it feel like to be the only one? Have you ever walked into a room where everyone was a different race? Have you walked into a bar where everyone was cheering the other team? Have you walked into a party in casual clothes when everyone else is in formal dress? Have you been alone in an unfamiliar neighborhood? It can feel singular and special, but more often than not, being the only one feels scary and isolated. It can feel like everyone is looking at you, judging your difference. In some way or another, at some time in our lives, we can all identify with being this red tulip. We know what it feels like to be the only. For many LGBTQ plus people, this is a very common feeling. Our difference and otherness may not be visible to others, but we can feel it, especially in environments where people might joke about queer people or make queerphobic remarks at work, at school, in our families, and in the places we visit. That's why the power of inclusion is strong and especially resonant for queer people who have faced a barrage of no. No, you can't get married. No, you can't serve in the military. No, you can't wear that. No, you can't eat here. No, you can't adopt together. So imagine how powerful hearing yes can be. Yes can be transformative because it tells us we belong. We all want to feel like we belong. And there are specific things you can do to help the LGBTQ plus community feel included.
Much of our Everyone Welcome training is focused on what you can do to help make LGBTQ plus people feel welcome. We cover topics such as using inclusive imagery, using inclusive language, evaluating gendered service protocols and amenities, welcoming signs and imagery, unconscious bias, handling homophobic and transphobic guests, respecting same-sex couples and families, and implementing inclusive systems and protocols. Now, as times and attitudes change and evolve, the language we use as a community also changes and evolves. One topic that is being talked about a lot right now are personal pronouns and the non-traditional pronouns used by gender-expansive people. Personal pronouns replace someone's name, so it's important to get it right. In this video, our educator, Devin Norell, will discuss pronouns and gender-inclusive alternatives to gendered language.
Pronouns are personal because they replace people's names and should be respected the same way a person's name would be. In English, the common personal pronouns are he, him, his, she, her, hers, and they, them, their, and we use them all the time. But he and she are binary, dividing the world into male and female, and don't make space for people who don't identify with the male-female binary. They is most commonly used when referring to two or more people, but it is increasingly being used as a gender-neutral singular pronoun. With more people identifying as something other than male or female, language has developed to include and affirm those non-binary identities. For people of alternate gender expression and identities, an expansion of pronouns has allowed them to identify more personally without being forced to misgender themselves. Gender-expansive people often use they, them, their as a singular pronoun, replacing he or she and referring to their singular selves as they. When we don't know the gender of someone we're talking about, we often use they to refer to a single person. So the singular they is a natural pronoun choice for a non-binary person. But it's not the only choice. Sie, them, their, spelled with an X or a Z, is also frequently used, and there are at least 5 other new personal pronoun combinations in use. So why are pronouns important? Using someone's correct pronouns is important because it helps non-binary and gender non-conforming people feel seen and safe. If someone is introduced to you as Bob, you wouldn't call him Dave. Likewise, if someone is introduced to you as they, you wouldn't refer to them as he or she. If someone uses doctor, professor, or princess as their honorific, you'd be careful to use that with them and not default to Mr. or Miss. Speaking of honorifics, gender-expansive people often use the honorific MX, pronounced mix. You shouldn't guess at someone's pronouns just as you wouldn't guess at their name. It can be awkward to ask, So if you don't know for sure, the best way to approach the situation is to offer your own pronouns when you introduce yourself. Offering your own pronouns may seem daunting, but trust us, it's easy. In fact, let's try it right now. Most of you probably use she or her or he, him pronouns. So you would say, "Hi, my name is Mary and I use she, her pronouns," or "I'm John and my pronouns are he, him, his." You can say "I use," or you can say "my pronouns are." So let's try it now. Are you ready? Nice to meet you. I'm Devin Norrell and my pronouns are ze, zim, ziz. That wasn't so hard, was it? Now, life can be complicated for people who use pronouns other than he, she. We are a small minority and our pronouns are rarely understood, let alone acknowledged or used correctly. And because we are still a very small percentage of people you may encounter, businesses often ignore the simple steps they can take to be more inclusive and welcoming. In an ideal future world, we might all introduce ourselves with our pronouns in every interaction. This is quickly becoming the norm within LGBTQ+ organizations and at events with a high concentration of LGBTQ+ attendees. It's a simple and very powerful gesture of inclusion. How can people and companies use pronouns to make people feel more welcomed? You could say, update your systems to collect pronoun information from your guests. Just seeing the option immediately communicates your commitment to inclusion and allows you to learn a guest's pronouns before they arrive. You could also add some of the common pronoun options to drop-down menus or an other field to registration forms. You can also add the honorific mix to a drop-down list that includes Mr., Mrs., Miss, or Doctor. You could put staff pronouns or name tags, email signatures, or social media. Vice President Kamala Harris is among the most prominent leaders to include her pronouns on her Instagram and Twitter profiles. It's appropriate to display them anywhere your names are displayed: cards, name badges, web profiles, your screen name, and video conferences. By offering your own pronouns in print, electronically, and in person, you help normalize the use of all pronouns. At a minimum, if you are educated on the topic of pronouns, you will be receptive instead of being caught off guard when a guest says they use they, them, ze, zim, zir, or other personal pronouns. Normalizing the use of non-traditional pronouns is important because transgender people and gender non-conforming people start every day from a defensive position of wondering if, when, and how they're going to be rejected, ridiculed, or attacked, trying to do everyday things so many of us take for granted. Here's our friend.
Welcoming LGBTQ+ people with care, generosity, and respect is the foundation of everything we teach. Before we go, our educator Elise D'Alessandro will recap some best practices with you. These are powerful takeaways that you should bring with you as you continue on your journey toward inclusive welcome for everyone.
Now we're going to leave you with a final list of best practices that you can take with you on your journey toward inclusive hospitality. Number 1, don't make assumptions about your guests. You cannot know the gender or sexuality of a person just by looking at them. Even if you think you can, you can't. The way people identify is very personal, so please remove assumptions about your guests. Number 2, follow guest leads on relationships and pronoun. If a guest introduces their partner as their spouse, use spouse back to them. If they say girlfriend, use girlfriend. Let them dictate the language. The same is true for pronouns. If someone says their pronouns are she, her, hers, use those pronouns to refer to that person. Give your guests the freedom to identify how they feel most comfortable and follow their lead. Number 3, be proactive in your welcome. This can begin by having your pronouns in your email signature or on your social channels, so guests know that you're an ally before they step foot in your hotel. Consider having a rainbow display in a way that is consistent with your brand aesthetic. This could be a rainbow flag flying out front or something as small as a rainbow pin on your lapel. Also, having your pronouns on your name tag will identify you as an ally. Number 4, Acknowledge non-binary guest bathroom needs. As we mentioned earlier, having inclusive bathroom signage will not only allow your non-binary guests a place to peacefully use the restroom, it also shows you are an ally and sensitive to the issue. Number 5, share your knowledge of local LGBTQ plus history. No matter what city you're in, there's a good chance there are LGBTQ plus landmarks, historic sites, or places of interest for your LGBTQ plus guests. Knowing these important spots will show your guests that you've done your homework, and that will make them feel welcomed. It's also something that allies of LGBTQ plus people will be impressed by. Number 6, tone and body language are important. If you're saying the right words, but your tone and body language are standoffish and unwelcoming, what's the point? LGBTQ plus people seem to have a sixth sense for detecting unwelcoming tone and body language. So make sure your tone is warm and your body language open and approachable. Number 7, fix misinterpretations with ease. You're going to make mistakes. Mistakes are part of the growth process. When you do, offer a warm apology and ask how you can do better. Don't belabor your apology. That can just add to the discomfort. A quick apology, gratitude for the correction, and a commitment to doing better is the best way to handle your mistakes. Number 8, focus on respect. If your heart and mind are in the right place and you're focusing on respect, you can't go wrong. Even if a mistake is made, the guests will be able to feel your respectful intentions. Number 9, it's okay to ask. You can ask for help. You can ask about pronouns. You can even ask Google. The more you ask, the more you'll learn. Don't shy away from the uncomfortable questions. Number 10, foster diversity within your own organization. Look at your organization. Does the diversity of decision makers reflect the diversity of your employees, customers, and community? Who are your coworkers? Who is on our board of directors? Who are your partners? You may not have hiring authority, but everyone can help build a more inclusive and supportive workplace using these same tools and practices and advocating on behalf of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And look at yourself. How diverse is your social media circle? Who do you choose to sit with next to at the luncheon or a meeting? Fostering diversity in your own life is an effective way to foster diversity in the communities around you.
Thank you, everyone.